to know about the Wellness Council a little bit more. Thank you, Mr. Fishbane, for mentioning that, that we already have them, and I understand that they're going to be the ones deciding on these policies for the schools. Are those elected individuals? Who's on those councils? How are parents to have a voice in those decisions? Can you just give me a little more color on that?
I probably would defer to staff, but my understanding, Ms. Donalds, is these are committees that get together that review the progress of health and wellness during the course of a school year. Who's on it, I honestly don't know, and I would have to defer to Dr. Patton and her staff on that one.
Okay, I think this is really
Dr.
important
Patton?
because they'll be making these decisions on behalf of
Okay,
the
one
entire
second.
school.
Let's get an answer for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Patton?
So there are the healthy school teams are not implemented for Blue Zone. They're across the board. So whether Blue Zone was here or not, they were implemented as a result of the state statutes and the federal statutes changing, stating that we now have mandated number of days of exemptions that if people want to do, quote, unhealthy fundraisers, elementary has 5, middle school has 10, and high schools have 15. So you do have to document all of that we're responsible for. So that's how the initial concept of who's going to do all that, who's going to talk about those unhealthy fundraisers. So for the schools that happen to be the 4 Blue Zone identified schools, for this first year, we would also ask that same team, which is comprised of a parent, the principal, and it's 5 people that we've said they have to be, and then they can have as many more as they want. We had a conversation with the principals to ensure that all 50 of those, whatever they're doing, although they're the guiding force for that, they would still keep the SAC people informed as to what they're doing, be it the 4 Blue Zones or the items that we need to report into the state for the number of exemption days. So that's basically how it would work. I know that the schools have a letter that they're going to be sending home that's been compiled together with the 4, so we ensure that as Blue Zone rolls out that there is a consistent message that's sent to the parents. And again, just want to mention that that's why it's key that we didn't try and take on more than we can do. Like many things that we do in the school system, we don't always just jump in and involve all of the parents. For instance, 2 years ago, we actually cut off candy as a reward for all of the students. You did not hear teachers come, you didn't hear from teachers, you didn't hear from principals. So lots of things that we implement are not always done with every last person's input and waiting for every last person's input. So that's why the system had felt that we could try and look at doing this in a small grouping. I think what Mr. Fishbane shared with us tonight, that we don't need the board to pass additional policies for Blue Zone. So that's why we knew we could be moving forward with something like this that had already in multiple parts of our policies, including working with the community that's in the board policies and different things that you've heard Mr. Fishbane go through. So just want to be sure people know that nobody's trying to, as it might have been intimated, to cut people out of information or things like that, but we don't with every single possible pilot that we do in many different areas. We don't have every last group coming to speaking on. It would be very difficult sometimes to move ahead. Where we can always do it better, we try and do things better. So it's just a general comment about how all that's working.
Thank you, Dr. Patton. Did you have another question?
I still have a major concern about that. So these are non-elected. I'm assuming the principal selects a parent and a teacher on this committee that's going to decide which of these policies the entire school is going to follow.
Right. So, but let me just rephrase that too, Mrs. Donalds. So understand our principals are really very good leaders. They generally don't sit in a room isolated and say, well, just these 4 people and me are on a committee, so 5 people are just making that decision. They have PTOs, they have PTAs, they have SAC committees, they have their own school input ways that they get from people. So, and a principal doesn't just say, okay, one teacher, that's who it is. They're going to talk about these things at their faculty meeting. The reason they didn't do all of this and why you haven't heard from teachers is because it became a very politicized issue, and that's fine. Anything is fine. But you also know they are not going to go out there on a limb until they then see what is it that you want to do.
Yeah, I'm
so
not sure
that's
about
why
that.
we're trying to do just a couple of schools to see, does it work? Does it work? How did it work? Keep us informed. Let us know how it moves forward.
Let's evaluate those 4 schools and how it's done in those 4 schools and the discussion among those 4 schools. And if you have thoughts or ideas, if you could share those with the superintendent, we can also share them with the 4 schools that are going to be
No, I'm-
potentially, let me finish, potentially engaged in this pilot process.
I am not interested in fixing it after the fact. I'm interested in getting it right before it starts. And we need to evaluate these concerns from parents. Obviously, I mean, if it's not obvious to you that parents are up in arms about this, I don't know what parents you're talking to. This
Well,
is
I can
very
tell you
controversial.
that I talked to a number of parents who came to an event at Canberra Park where there were wonderful healthy snacks. There were also teachers at that particular event, and they were very positive about the process and moving forward in the 4 schools. Give our site-based leaders the opportunity to engage their communities in the way that they feel best fits the needs of their school and come back with the pilot process to us. Let us not dictate those processes.
That's
as board
exactly what's
members.
happening. You don't have a choice. You're going to be a blue zone school. Pick 21 of these items, and that's how it's going.